Hey everyone, my name is James Shotwell, and on this episode of Music Biz, I want to discuss the 1,000 fan theory, which is an idea that is taught in music business schools, at music business conferences, and in countless books about how to succeed in the music business. But there are a lot of factors that I don't think we often consider that I'm going to share here in this video today. But what is the 1,000 fan theory? Back in 2008, Wired Magazine's Kevin Kelly proposed that an artist wanting to live a sustainable, if unspectacular career only needs 1,000 fans who are willing to spend, on average, $100 per year to support their dreams. If they can achieve that, the artist will then be able to quit their day job and focus fully on their craft. And of course, the trick in all this is figuring out where those 1,000 fans come from. Now, the beauty of this idea, and why I think it has proliferated around the music business so much, is that it makes living a full-time career as an artist seem achievable to virtually everyone. After all, we all know that there are close to 8 billion people on the planet, and we only need 1,000 of them, a very, very small percentage of the total number of people on the planet, to care about our music enough to spend some money supporting it in order for us to live our dreams. That makes it all seem very achievable. But there are detractors to the 1,000 fan theory, and I think that their arguments against it are pretty compelling. Now, the first big complaint is that if you have 1,000 people giving you $100 annually, that amounts to $100,000 gross, but that does not take into account all the expenses. I mean, right off the top, we have 10% for a manager, a few more percent for your booking agent, you have the cost of a publicist, you have recording costs, you have merchandise costs, you have general promotional costs, you have the cost of upkeep for your van or whatever you're touring in and all of your gear, and then you also, of course, have taxes. So after we slice all that stuff out of that $100,000, you're left with somewhere between, if you're lucky, $30,000 to $50,000, which is good if you're a solo artist. But if you're a band, if you have 4 people in a band, suddenly that $100,000 isn't really getting each of you that far. I mean, it might be enough to support you for a little while, but if you want to have a fulfilling life, you might need a little bit more money than that. Thankfully, in 2021, we live in an age where supplemental revenue streams are pretty easy to come across. I mean, streaming is bringing in money without you really having to do anything other than just promote your music, which of course you'd be doing anyway. And then we have fan clubs like Patreon and other services that are helping people set up subscription tiers where people can pay $5 or $10 per month to support their favorite musician, and over a year, guess what? That adds up to $50 to $120. That can be very beneficial to an artist's bottom line. But again, we still have to get all those fans. And even if you find 1,000 people who love your music, it doesn't mean that they're going to be spending enough money to support your career full time. Some fans may spend $500 on you annually, while others may spend $5, $10, or $20. If they're paying for Spotify and they're not attending any shows or buying any merch, they're spending far less than that to support your career annually. That doesn't make them any less important as a fan, but it's not going to give you this goal of making enough money to sustain yourself. The numbers just don't work out that way. And that's not including the fact that, again, you have to spend money to create opportunities for your fans to spend money. You have to book a tour and spend for the merchandise and set up the live stream, all of which you're going to charge your fans for, but you don't actually know how much you're going to get back until you spend that money. So there's a lot of risk involved there, and there's a lot of finding just how many fans it actually takes. Because for one person, it may be 1,000 fans. They might find 1,000 people spending enough money to support them full time. But for most groups, it's going to be 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people spending a decent amount of money every year to cover their expenses and allow for a livable wage. There's also a matter of attrition, meaning that some of your fans aren't going to stick around forever. People that love your first album might not like the second, third, and fourth record. And some people who didn't hear your first album might discover you on the second record, but not really start spending money to support you until album 3 or 4, or even 5 years after that album comes out. There's a fluctuation that is constantly happening. So just because you make enough money to live your dream full-time one year doesn't mean that it's going to work out the next year. You have to constantly be adding fans and hope that you add fans faster than you lose them, and that the spending works out along the way. It's a much more complicated problem than just finding 1,000 engaged people willing to spend money on your career. But there is a bit of good news, which is that we now live in a global marketplace, more so than ever. I mean, it was always true, but reaching fans a world away from where you live was a little bit more difficult a decade ago when the idea was first proposed. These days, thanks to analytics and streaming services, you can discover that you have a giant audience in a country you've never been to and start using targeted advertising campaigns to try to lure them into spending more money on your career. Maybe you're an artist based out of the Midwest who has a giant audience in Indonesia, and you don't know why that is necessarily, but you can start catering to that demographic. You can make targeted ads that work towards those people. You can offer them unique merch in their language, whatever it happens to be. You can find different ways to engage a global audience and hopefully make enough revenue to sustain your career. Of course, that is if you outshine your competition, because as much as it's easier than ever to reach people all over the world, there are more artists than ever before with access to that same global audience that is trying to get them to spend money on their careers. And let's not act like money is just growing on trees these days. People can only spend so much on their favorite music, and you have to outshine the competition while catering to the people that best suit your field and hope, and really, really hope, that they have the funds and the desire to support you financially. Which brings me back to why I wanted to do this video. Because since 2008, when Kevin Kelly first proposed this idea, people have wondered whether or not it holds any weight. I mean, can you just find 1,000 fans willing to spend on average $100 per year and sustain yourself? I think that that's really rare. It's incredibly hard to do just because of how music works, especially in 2021. The vast majority of people are engaging with your music on platforms that are promising to pay you on their behalf. They give $10 to Spotify, Spotify pays you for the fact that they stream your music, and they consider that their version of support. And while that totally counts, you're definitely not going to make $100 on average from Spotify, or even the combination of Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Tidal, and all the services combined. Most likely you're going to make a fraction of that for your fans' engagement. So you have to find people who love your music enough to take one extra step, to buy a ticket to the show, bring friends out to the show, buy merchandise, subscribe to a Patreon, subscribe to a newsletter, buy the exclusive merch that you launch online, pay for a premium live stream experience. And all of those things, or most of those things, are going to cost you money first. You're going to have to put out some financial risk in order to hopefully reap the rewards of a built-in audience. And until then, the best you can do is try to cater to the people that you think will be interested in your music, engage with them frequently, and give them content that they want. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to make a living with that 1,000 fan theory. It is totally a thing. But I think most artists are going to need far more fans than that, because the amount of money that they're getting per listener is lower than it was a decade ago. You're going to need 2, 3, 4, maybe 10,000 people interested in your music enough to buy a piece of merch or buy a ticket to a show or just stream your music constantly in order to make a livable wage. It's not impossible by any means, but it is going to take a lot of work. So get out there, work hard, stay vigilant, and constantly engage the people that should be listening to your music. Because if you're making great songs, people want to hear them, so get out there and promote it. Now, if you want to discuss some of the other theories about success in the music business, because trust me, there are many, well then click the subscribe button down below, because Music Biz is all about navigating the modern music business. It's about understanding what does and does not work, what is and is not achievable, and what trends are shaping the future of this industry. So if you want to join me on my journey to understand the industry as well as possible, click that button. And if you've already done so, you have my sincerest thanks, and I'll leave you with this. No matter what you do with your life, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it.